We all know who Corey LaJoie is today, the Cup Series NASCAR driver. But it didn't start that way. It's not like he was born in the Cup Series. It was a long, arduous journey getting to the top level of NASCAR. Let's take that journey together and see how he accomplished this.
I knew of God, but I didn't really know God. It took me a heck of a lot longer to get to where I'm at now than I expected. You know, I think I had to have it all taken away to really appreciate the opportunities that I've been given. It really matters the legacy you leave for the people behind you, right? And if you act a little bit different than everybody else, people take notice.
All right, Corey LaJoie, thanks, buddy, for joining us here on a Relatable journey. First of all, where are you? You got a lot of swag back there.
Got a lot of. I look like I'm in the Randy LaJoie Hall of Fame. Just it's like the mural of. So I'm sitting in Randy LaJoie's office here in the Joy of seat in Concord, North Carolina. All of his helmets, some of his, some others, but this is where I usually cop his office when I have to do something. And especially you might not get the soundproof treatment, but you get the office treatment today, Will.
I'll take that, brother. Where's the Corey LaJoie Hall of Fame?
There's not one. There isn't a whole lot of stuff in the Corey LaJoie Hall of Fame yet. I got some helmets and a couple trophies. They're kind of spread out. Most of it's here at the shop. I just haven't acquired an office yet to hang some stuff up. I'm usually in the back getting my hands dirty.
That's going to be part of the journey down the road. So take me through kind of your overarching journey, just of your career, kind of your ups and downs, and how you got to where you are at the highest level of racing in the world. And NASCAR.
My journey's a lot different than a lot of people. You know, some people think that, you know, you win a certain race here or there and it gets you to the next level, and it's, you know, the progression like baseball, where you go from high school ball to single A ball, double A on up. And a lot of the cases it is, but for me, you know, I grew up racing for my family. You know, my dad owned all my cars up till I was probably 20 years old. And in 2012 was kind of like when stuff started taking some traction for me with having some success in racing against Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott and Darrell Wallace and all these guys in what would be considered probably single A ball, the K&N Pro Series. Kyle Larson edged me by 6 points in the championship there. And from there, I'd signed a development deal, quote unquote, with Richard Petty Motorsports. And we had this 5-year-long contract with all this, you know, grand plans with what we're going to do and driving a cup car and this how much money you're going to make and everything's going to be, you know, green skies or, you know, blue skies and green pastures. But we weren't able to find any sponsorship, and a couple of kids came in my age that essentially bought the Xfinity car. So that opportunity there at RPM kind of dried up. And what I thought, you know, my career was, you know, I was 18, 19 years old. I was hot stuff. And you know, I was in the ESPN Next magazine with Kyrie Irving. Like, I think that, you know, I'm somebody, right? And next thing I know, 2 years later, I'm flying to Bakersfield, California every other week to crew chief a K&N car just to pay the mortgage, right? And with David Mayhew. And I was actually going down that path of being a crew chief for about a year and starting to understand the dynamics of the car even better than I had been before in my just journey, if you will. And a company that was actually on our car at the 500 this year, Youth Theory. They were pushing their product ashwagandha, but this I guess would have been 2016. They continued to follow my social media, and they reached out and they said, man, hey, you know, why aren't you? Because I met those guys through Richard Petty Motorsports, and why aren't you in a car? And I was like, man, I don't have any money. That's really what you need anymore. They're like, we want to help get you back behind the wheel. So they sponsored me, ended up being 10 races. And I took it to a 15th place team, being JGL. And that kind of got the ball rolling. And I got a couple more sponsors to get back behind the wheel as much as possible. And, you know, I didn't push all the chips onto the table to drive for a Gibbs or an RCR or juniors to do, you know, 3 or 4 races and bet on myself. I needed to get experience just because I hadn't got any big track experience yet. You know, and that ultimately got me a ride with BK Racing in the Cup Series. Was on a 1 race basis. If you make the 500, we might go to more. ended up racing my way into the duels to qualify into that. And that one race deal turned into like 34 or 5. And BK shut the door. And luckily, a couple of partners came with me. So, man, there was like so many points in my career where the train could have stopped. And for whatever reason, I think, not for whatever reason, I know that the Lord used me and has continued to use me in my career to just, try to be a good example, try to impact people for positive inside the car and outside the car.
So when you're becoming a crew chief at this point, you hop on a different track, basically. I asked this question because in my career, I was a producer behind the camera straight out of college at ESPN, and everyone thought like, that's awesome. And I was there. I'm like, I don't know, like it's neat, but frankly, I just needed more attention. I had to be on air. I had to go back to school to do what I needed to do. And then I moved to Fargo. All my friends were living back at home in New York City, and then to Toledo and Wichita. And the reason I say that is like, it was never a question. Like, I'd rather go in New York and work on Wall Street with everybody else. It was like a no brainer that like, listen, I just got to go to Fargo. That's what I'm supposed to do. So when you were being a crew chief, we were like, this just isn't right. This doesn't fit. And God didn't make me to be a crew chief.
I didn't know in the moment, right? I mean, a lot of times you don't really get to choose what you do. You just have to be a good steward wherever you're placed. And, that's the way that kind of life ebbed and flowed. But I also think that, for an ego check and some humility, that was kind of needed because, it probably came easy. And, I think I probably thought that I was this superhuman race car driver, which turns out wasn't the case. And, I think I had to have it all taken away to really appreciate the opportunities that I've been given. And I still appreciate opportunities like Spire Motorsports has given me here this year with, the best cars I've been able to drive probably in my NASCAR career, not let alone in the Cup Series. It's been the best. I didn't drive a very good truck. I didn't drive a very good Xfinity car. So, for these guys to bet on me as well as me betting on them for the long game, I think that it's going to eventually pay off. But it took me a heck of a lot longer to get to where I'm at now than I expected it to. But it's not on my timing, right? It's on his.
So it's easy for you now. And I always say this on a relatable journey because it's so much about that journey. You can't look at the dots connected looking forward. You can always look at them connected looking back. But when you're in the moment, how did you rely on God? Did you yell at God? Were you mad at God? Were you frustrated, confused? Like, how did that look like? And what did just kind of that relationship do in the moment?
All that, right? I mean, like, hey, dude, where are you at? I need some help. Or, like everything that, you can get frustrated. You can get, ask why this, why that. But ultimately, you have to fall back on the truth that he wants the very best for those who love him, right? No matter where you're at, whether you're doing what you want to do or not, he's always working things for the very best for you because he loves you infinitely more than you can ever imagine. So, there was a lot of times I had to fall back on that. Man, this isn't where I want to be, and I'm not sure why I'm here, but let me be a good steward of where I'm at. And like I don't recall the verse reference, but don't work as you're working for man, work as if you're working for the Lord. And there was a lot of times I was working, the person who I was working for, I didn't particularly love or want to do a whole lot of work for, but that got me in a bad mindset of, not applying myself or doing what my best capabilities were. So if I look at things like I'm working for the Lord as opposed to for somebody in particular, it allows me to look at the perspective like I should.
Man, that's so true. Like we've all had bad bosses out there. And when you make it about them, they control you and they become your God. And if you work for God, then you're always going to go into work a little bit more joyful at least. And then you can rub off the boss that's in the corner office and just kind of ignore it at least a little bit.
Absolutely.
But how'd your relationship with God grow because of your tribulations? Like, how are you different today than you were back then?
Well, having a kid obviously changes a lot of things. That's just a miracle from inception, really. And watching my wife go through that, and I mean, anybody that has a kid can probably agree that, you don't know love until that kid comes out. Right? You love your spouse, but you you damn love your kid. Like, it's different. And, that certainly is eye opening to like just the miracle that life is, and it makes you feel really finite and small, knowing that you don't have any control on the outcome of that kid. And there's, so many people that think they do, but they really don't. Right. But, that's another story for another day. But, there's so many things in my life where I should have, where I stuck my foot in my mouth and said something I shouldn't have, or did something that I shouldn't have. But like, he has continued to guide me and put me in positions to impact people with being Samaritan's Feet opportunity being one where we raised over almost $250,000 for that charity, trying to put shoes on feet of kids worldwide. And I continue to work hand in hand with those guys. They're actually in downtown Charlotte. So it's an awesome charity plug in too. And anytime you go to a shoe donation with those guys and you put a new pair of shoes on a fourth grader's feet, man, it's hard to keep it together, to be honest with you. I encourage everybody to go do that and just get that perspective shifter, because, it doesn't take long for me to, look at the shoes I'm wearing and be on StockX looking for, the next pair of off-white Blazers to go buy, or some sort of, stupid purchase that just because you have a couple bucks in the bank, when you think about the millions of people in the world who are probably wearing a Sprite bottle that's cut in half with some rope tied to their feet just so they don't get any footborne infections. So, it's hard to maintain perspective when you're around people who don't have the same, way of looking at life as you do, but trying to swim upstream versus just letting the current take you downstream is really important.
We've talked to a lot of people on a relatable journey so far, so I'm always curious how someone like yourself or anybody kind of finds God and how that relationship starts. Like Daryl Strawberry, when we talked to him, he said, his mom was always a believer, but then one day, his dad walked in drunk with a shotgun, and then, everything kind of started from there. Roman Harper said that he was partying one night in Los Angeles and felt empty, despite being around all the women and all the alcohol and all the things that the world tells you should have and be happy with. So how did you find God? Because personally, I was just raised that way, and it clicked from the start, truthfully.
Yeah. And I was raised in a Catholic household. So I did the CCD, and, my foundation is always, I've known like the facts, right? But I didn't really, I say it all the time, like I knew of God, but I didn't really know God and take them serious until probably maybe when you realize that you're not a kid anymore, right? And you realize a lot more stuff's out of your control than in your control. And when you realize the person that's truly in control is for you and with you, and you really start putting those things into practice. And my wife and I got baptized a couple years ago together in the beach, New Smyrna Beach. We've been on a couple of missions trips. So, it's doing what we do each and every week with racing and being around those guys. It's so easy to compare yourself to the Joneses, right? You try to keep up with them because you see the planes and the motor homes and the cars and all the stuff that you want to have. But really, in the grand scheme of things, man, it really doesn't matter. It really matters the legacy you leave for the people behind you, what they thought about you, and how you treated those.
Yeah, it's one thing I've learned in this pandemic is to stop focusing on other people and just do your best. You don't have to always compete against everybody else, because you're not everybody else. You're never going to be what they are, what they're not going to be what you are. So if you just keep grinding on your own grind, it's a lot easier. And to your other point, and an apropos simile or analogy, if you will, is the quicker you take your hands off the wheel, the quicker and easier everything becomes.
Well, and it's not like you holding on to the reins any tighter, because I've been guilty of this, just like you said. I get more anxious when I feel like I can control something and I'm holding on to the reins, trying to grip it for all it's worth. I get anxious about it, and eventually it's going to turn out the same way, or turn out the way it was supposed to all along, right? So, if you just the cliche saying is let go and let God, but it really is true in a lot of ways, because you just got to rely on the talents and the abilities that He gives you, and be a good steward with that, and continue to put the work in, but also know that the outcome a lot of times is irrelevant. It's really how you handle things to be a good disciple or apostle to everybody watching, because people don't know necessarily what you believe in or how you perceive a certain thing, whether it be faith or Jesus or or anything, but they know how you act, right? And if you act a little bit different than everybody else, people take notice.
Yeah, I agree with that. What's your message to everybody watching or listening to a relatable journey right now that you want them to take away from your journey?
I guess how quickly we forget the goodness of God, right? And no matter what, it's human nature to forget about the dreams that you have that sparked a certain idea, or the deeds that were placed in front of you that you ended up just agreeing to, and something came about it. All these God moments are easy to justify and put in kind of like your little box of what you think God is, and it's so easy to forget how good He is. And I think that and you have to consciously and intently pursue Him like He pursues you. Get into the Word. The only way to know God is to read what He says, right? And that's to read the Word. And I stray more often than I'd like to admit, but I know that when I do, I got to open the Word and get back in it to really get that. It's sharper than any two-edged sword, right? It cuts between bone and marrow. So you got to read the Word to know God, and for Him to know He knows you. He knows how many hairs on your head, hairs in my beard, all that. Like He knows me, but we all got to do a little better pursuing Him because He knows us. We just got to know Him a little better.
And I said this a couple times as well in this podcast, but during this pandemic, that's one thing I took away, because my prayer was always, let me come out of this pandemic better. I don't know what that looks like, just don't let me waste it.
Yeah.
And it was like, whenever I did my devotion early in the morning, got into it every day, like every day was good. And then when I didn't do it, I'm like, I feel like I'm missing something. And then I went back. So he's not mad, he still loves me. We're still good. We're still on the same page here. So, I think that,
it's easy to get caught up and prioritize other things, and not wake up early and rush out of the house and not get it in, and one day turns into a week, turns into a month, and you got to be conscious about that and try to keep that tight.
the final question, I'm curious, and everyone answers this differently, all the athletes. As a professional athlete that is famous and people look up to, that can do no wrong, only see like what you post on social media, is it harder to kind of humble yourself with God?
Oh, absolutely. Right. I mean, you think, the more stuff that you have in your life that allows you to quote unquote control it. And, I guess you rely less on the daily bread. You go to somewhere, a place like Haiti, third world country, those guys are relying on community and the daily bread, a blessing almost each and every day to stay fed. And a lot of that time, they don't know where it's coming from until God provides it. Right. And, he clothes the fields of the flowers of the field and the birds of the air. So how much more does He care about us? Right. So God's just awesome. And yeah, it's easy to think that you can control your own stuff when you have some money and you have a little bit of, you have a nice house, and you can, if you're hungry, you just go to Fresh Market and buy steak and you cook it on your Traeger grill, right? Like that's just, what we do. And we're so Americanized and kind of callous to the daily bread of what the blessings could be.
So you're a Traeger boy, huh? Not a green egg?
No, I'm a Traeger guy for sure. I love that thing. I think it's awesome. I cook the hell out of steaks on there.
All right, buddy. We appreciate you popping on a relatable journey, man. Go get a dub this year, all right?
All right, thanks, Will.
Thank you for joining us on a relatable journey today. Now we need your help. We want to get this in front of as many people as possible. In order to do that, we got to please the algorithms on all these platforms. This is how it works. You got to follow or subscribe on your platform and then leave a 5-star rating and write a review. I know it can be a lot, but please help us out with this. Because of you, this is a relatable journey.